What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So later on this week, on Friday, the Nintendo Switch OLED will release next to Metroid Dread, and it appears we had another teardown going a bit further into that dock and checking out one part that I was very curious about. We're going to go over that here today, and new discovery maybe for some future-proofing from Nintendo. Also, we're going to be talking about some potential good news from AMD when it comes to finding a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox Series system going into next year. And we're also going to be talking about that Mr. Sakurai Presents that will be happening here in a couple of hours. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all of the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with an update from the story yesterday, that being about Metroid Dread, just kind of leaking out online with several clips just kind of being posted up, 10, 15, even 20-second clips of someone, I guess, just playing through the game, along with cutscenes, spoiling parts of the story. Well, now it looks like the game itself has just been dumped and then leaked online, so people are just downloading it out, playing the game, whether it's on, I guess, a hacked or modified Switch, or who knows, maybe one of those emulators or something is able to play it. Either way, this just means that more and more people are able to essentially spoil the game ahead of its Friday release, and it's just something Nintendo has to pretty much deal with this generation because the first 20 or 25 million Switch units were so easy to exploit using just a paperclip. We also found out that Metroid Dread is going to be smaller in file size than originally expected. It was going to be over, I believe, 6 gigabytes originally. Now it appears, according to the eShop page, it is 4.1 gigabytes in size. So good to know it's not going to take up too much of your SD card or even the internal storage on your Switch. But once again, just be mindful because it does appear that there are going to be spoilers all over the place over the next couple days as we work towards Friday. Also, we did have some new games announced for PlayStation Now. Those will be live today, October 5th, and we can see this over on PlayStation Blog, where they say The Last of Us Part 2, Fallout 76, Desperados 3, Amnesia Collection, Final Fantasy VIII Remastered, yet another Zombie Defense, Victor Von Overkill Edition. And it looks like Last of Us Part 2 will sort of be that I guess that process they do where they put one of their bigger first-party titles on PlayStation Now for a couple of months. For example, Last of Us Part 2 will be available on PlayStation Now until January 3rd, but they also point out that if you download it onto your PS5 through PlayStation Now, you will be able to get the PS5 Performance Patch. That's good to hear because I have noticed that PlayStation Now is essentially just PS4 games, and you don't even get that upgrade. We rent that whole thing with the Avengers, so it is at least good to see with a first-party title like Last of Us Part 2 just going into PlayStation Now, we'll be able to leverage the extra hardware from the PS5. Otherwise, though, it's an alright month, I guess, for additions. Good to see Microsoft showing up there with Fallout 76, but obviously the big one here is going to be Last of Us Part 2. Good chance to try it out if you have not. Like I said, it's just kind of getting thrown into PlayStation Now, so go and check it out. Oh, and we did have some first-party Nintendo Switch titles just go on sale randomly at places like Best Buy and Amazon, which means these would be for physical copies of the game. We can see this with Wario64 saying $39.99 first-party Switch games on Amazon, that being The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and new Pokemon Snap. I mean, Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD is a good one to pick up at $40, but obviously Super Smash Bros. Ultimate going on sale makes a ton of sense considering there's a lot of hype right now going into the Mr. Sakurai Presents here in a couple of hours leading up to the final announcement for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. But pretty good couple of games here. I just like to point out when they're on sale because it doesn't happen that often, and it doesn't happen often when they're physical copies. So you can go on Amazon and pick up a couple of these, or apparently just throw it into your cart in Best Buy. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Nintendo Switch OLED, but not the system, the dock. See, one part that's been very curious to a lot of people is Nintendo changing out the dock just to add a LAN port. I mean, it had USB ports there. You just use an adapter, and it was fine for the most part. I still believe that I'd say the majority of people will use wireless connection for their Switch when they're playing online because it's a hybrid, so there are a lot of people just playing handheld mode like exclusively. But still, changing out the entire dock just for that one part. Well, it looks like we did get a bit more of a teardown from Nintendo Prime, and he posted this picture up online, kind of taking off the metal shielding near that HDMI port showing the chip that is directly behind it, which would be in charge of taking the DisplayPort signal and converting it to HDMI, then of course be able to run to your TV. And we can even have a little number here that is shown, RTD2172N. Now, looking at this particular chip with that designation, they do have another one that has a U on the end of that number string, and this appears to be used currently for, say, a USB-C to HDMI 2.0 active cable like this one. You can pick up and then run it, I guess, from like a laptop or something that has, say, USB-C out, and then you can have a display signal there. But looking at this, it does appear that this chip is capable of doing 4K, 60 Hz, HDR, all of that. But the question really will become, did Nintendo do this because these chips are the only ones available now? Because their previous chip they were using was pretty much paired to HDMI 1.4, and you would mostly see, I believe, 4K 30, but mostly you'd just be doing 1080p 60, and that's what Nintendo appeared to be going with the Switch. But times are changing, obviously. We hear about this Switch 4K system from Bloomberg over the last several years, and who's to say this dock wouldn't be used for something like that in the future if we are going to see another 2, 3, even 4 years out of this family of systems from Nintendo. Now, I do bring up the idea that Nintendo this is the chip they had really available to them. It's possible that the older chips they were using in the Switch dock either just weren't being made anymore, or we've heard about all kinds of issues when it comes to supply chains and chip shortages, and maybe that's just what was there from Realtek, so they decided to customize it a bit, and that's why there's an N on the end instead of, for example, a U like we see in one of those USB-C to HDMI 2.0 cables. But Mike Heskins had another idea for this. This was shared actually a couple of days ago. We can see this over on Twitter, saying, while the chip, that being the RTD2172N inside the new dock, is technically capable of 4K upscaling, not through DLSS, now that we have its firmware, we can clearly see it's not being used, and the chip was customized to support LAN instead. And that is an interesting direction for Nintendo to take this, considering they have that chip right there, essentially ready to go if they needed to output 4K for, say, a newer Switch. Not this OLED model. I don't expect this OLED Switch to do anything other than maybe 4K streaming when it comes to like a Netflix or YouTube or something like that. Media, that's what the X1 can currently do. It can support 4K for anything like any playback when it comes to different applications. But for gaming, they would have to come up with a whole system when it comes to upscaling through, say, DLSS, as has been rumored. But it does appear that they have figured out the output issue, but they're currently using that chip to support LAN. But remember, the dock can be updated, as they have introduced that into firmware, where the dock itself can, I guess, receive an update from Nintendo servers and potentially make it so that then, yes, there is a 4K option that pops up because, oh look, the Switch 4K is out. But either way, it appears that one bottleneck has been removed. In fact, even the cable that comes with the Switch dock, that be the HDMI cable, does support 4K 60, as Nintendo Prime did use it with another device like, say, an Xbox Series X or a PS5 or something, and it was able to do that. So maybe Nintendo is future-proofing this going forward here, as they could be looking to introduce other Switch systems, or even maybe a next-gen Switch that would work with this dock. So we'll just keep an eye out for that, I guess, as we go along here through 2022 into 2023. Next up, let's talk about the Xbox, the PlayStation, AMD, and that pesky chip shortage that's been making it very difficult to find a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series system in stock before the bots grab them all online at like a Walmart or a Target. Fortunately, though, it does appear that these systems are starting to find their way in stores now, where you do have to still get a ticket, but at least you don't have to battle these bots through a web page that keeps crashing, right? But it does look like AMD at least believes that some of these issues around supply chains and this chip shortage could be easing a bit as we head into next year. We can see this over on VGC, where they say AMD, which makes the CPUs and GPUs inside PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S, expects chip supply issues to ease gradually in the second half of 2022. Now, this is from Lisa Su, the CEO at AMD, says it might take, 18 to 24 months to put on a new plant, and in some cases, even longer than that. These investments were started perhaps a year ago. So take 18 to 24 months minus, I guess, like 12 months or so. And then we start to head into 2022, hopefully seeing the chip shortage be eased a bit, and we start to see more stock pop up for, say, the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X. Obviously, the chip shortage is essentially affecting everything. Like cars are very difficult to find on lots now, and it does also look like we have issues when it comes to just supply chain. We did have Phil Spencer, who talked in an interesting conference with The Wrap, where he did mention supply issues outside of just chips, saying, I think it's probably too isolated to talk about it as just a chip problem. When I think about what does it mean to get the parts necessary to build a console today, and then get it to the markets where the demand is, there are multiple kind of pinch points in that process, and I think, regretfully, it's going to be with us for months and months, definitely through the end of this calendar year into the next calendar year. So I do think we are going to be heading into a pretty tough holiday when it comes to finding a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X or even a Series S. I have been seeing Series S systems actually just at Walmart. Like, my local Walmart had one of them just sitting in the glass randomly, but I don't see a Series X or a PS5 anywhere in stores, just on like a shelf. And I do believe going into this holiday, it's going to be in short supply all the way around. But as we head into 2022, sure, maybe we could see the chip shortage kind of ease a bit. But Phil Spencer mentioned, hey, we can put these systems together. But then even just the logistics around getting these systems to, say, the US is a whole other issue right now. So a lot of problems when it comes to building the systems and then getting them to the destination and then being able to sell them to you. So unfortunately, I think we're going to have some issues around scalpers and resellers, of course, marking these things up once again to $800 to $1,000 as we go into this holiday. I'm just hoping we get into 2022 and we start talking about how, wow, look, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X are just in stores and I can walk in and pick one up. Wouldn't that be amazing? Next up, let's talk about that Mr. Sakurai Presents that will be happening a couple hours after this video goes live at 10 a.m. Eastern. We will find out who the final character is for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. There will be no other fighters pass after this. They were very clear that this is it, which means it will be the last Mr. Sakurai Presents that we get. So I'm a little curious, even outside of the character reveal, if Sakurai is going to talk about maybe some of the history of Super Smash Bros., just kind of reflect on his time with this series. And I almost wonder if this is it for Sakurai. Like, how do you top Smash Bros. Ultimate? But we did have this posted up online from Sakurai, kind of building up the event. This over at VGC saying, in just one day, the last fighter of Smash Bros. Ultimate will be announced. Even if you don't play the game, if you're interested in gaming, I'd like to recommend you watch it. The new fighter may be a character that you don't know or different from what you expected, but I hope you enjoy the broadcast itself, and I had fun recording it. So I assume we're going to see Sakurai, I guess, in his office and kind of talking about this new character, showing it off, of course, playing against himself with the controllers and all of this. But a lot of people are now guessing as to who this character is going to be, and most people are kind of leaning towards Sora. That would be obviously a big-time reveal. It's one that fans have been asking for next to Goku, but it kind of seems like Sakurai is saying it might not be who you expect. So I guess if I had to take a guess, I'm between two different, I guess, characters here. Either, I guess, a character from Astral Chain or Amaterasu from Okami. That would be one that I feel like people would be mildly disappointed on, but I think that'd be a fun character to drop into Smash Bros. Either way, though, no matter who is shown here, there's probably going to be disappointment online somewhere, right? So really just show the character and do the whole thing where he shows off all the moves, goes in the history of that franchise, and then take some time at the end to talk about his history with the series, some thoughts, reflection, all this, and then close things out as that might be the last time we see Sakurai for a long time, maybe ever. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a new accessory that appears to have leaked out a bit early for the Xbox Series X and Series S. This has to do with that memory card that we have now being the 1 terabyte from Seagate. What if we had other options? Because that's what people have been asking for. Look, the 1 terabyte, it's kind of expensive. It's like $220 or $230. What if we had like a smaller one, maybe a 512 gigabyte model? Well, it looks like Windows Central has the scoop on this one. We can see this where they say they were sent exclusive promo materials confirming a cheaper 512 gigabyte option. Now, we can see the image here that they were sent. They also were sent, I guess, an external SSD for the Xbox Series X and Series S. At least it's going to be branded that way, of course, from Seagate. Now, I was really hoping that we would see other companies jump in here with their own versions of the expansion card, because then we would like to assume that competition would mean that we would see prices fall a bit, maybe even get that under $200 for the 1 terabyte. But for the 512 gigabyte card, I think it'd be great to see it right at like $99.99. And I know most people are going to say, well, I'd rather have the larger storage so I don't have to then think about buying another card. I get why they might not want to do it at $100 because then you can just buy 2 of those. And I guess have some convenience in the fact that you could technically have multiple cards with different games and kind of pop them in and out as you'd like, or even kind of leave one upstairs and downstairs, however you need to do it when it comes to multiple systems in the household. I just think these storage cards need to start getting further down in price, because a 1 terabyte card plus a Series S is more than the Xbox Series X. And I get it. You'd say, well, I just buy the Series X. But still, the storage cards themselves just appear to be very expensive to the mainstream, and they are. So I get that. But I would like to see them work in different companies outside of Seagate just to see what other options we'd have available. That's the thing I like about the PlayStation 5. Sure, there's a bit more work when it comes to installing it, and it's not hot swappable like we have with the Series X for convenience, but there are way more options, and they continue to build as we go along. Not only just the cards themselves that we put in the PS5, but even the heat sinks are competing for your money that just kind of slap onto the top of the M.2 drive that you stick in there. So I hope we get more cards outside of just different sizes from Seagate, but I guess this is at least a good first step. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a little poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, the last Smash Bros. Ultimate character is about to be revealed. Will it end up being Sora? And 78% said no. Only 23% said yes. And I mean, Sora was trending, I think, over the last 2 or 3 days on Twitter. People seem pretty sure that that is the final big character for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. I think people are looking at this as, well, it's the final character. It has to be massively impactful. Like, I mean, we saw like Banjo-Kazooie. That was pretty impactful, right? We saw Minecraft, Steve. That was impactful. That actually broke Twitter for a solid like 15 or 20 minutes. So if it is a character that is not like Twitter breaking or to the point where the internet just explodes from excitement, it'll probably be just disappointment because it's not that massive hype factor. But could someone like character from Astral Chain achieve that? Probably not. Could Amaterasu do that? Probably not. So yeah, I get why people are like, I hope it's Sora or Goku. Maybe Master Chief. I'm trying to think of like the big explosive characters that could be shown there, but give me your best guess down below in the comments. Like I said, a couple of hours after this video goes live, we'll find out. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Aaron saying, so is Sony going to include the Silent Hills PT demo in their PlayStation trial? See, the nice thing about this is if this all ends up being correct and Kojima is working alongside of PlayStation, who's working alongside of Konami in order to license Silent Hills back to Kojima to work on, that PT demo could be revived and kind of put out there as a way to advertise and build hype for this game, or it could just be tacked on in the game itself. Maybe it's like a special thing you unlock. That would be really cool. Or maybe Kojima doesn't bring it back and he just has references to that demo. It was such a big deal when it was pulled down, and it still remains to be a big deal to this day with fans. So they could do some fun stuff with that demo if they wanted to. I do believe it would be a way to get people really hyped around the announcement. If they like announce the game and then they're like, oh yeah, that PT demo, it's back up on the PlayStation Store. Why don't you go check it out? And ladies and gentlemen, that's good to hear for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here. Today was the chip that was found inside the Nintendo Switch OLED dock that appears set to at least be able to handle 4K 60 with HDR, maybe for a planned Switch version in the future. Also, what about the Mr. Sakurai Presents event here coming up in a couple of hours? Give me your best guess for the Smash character down below. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.